Alrighty. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So we're not here all day. How many of you guys were at my last class in July?
With the fire one.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The fire disclosure.
That
was really bad at the end. I know it was a lot of information, but I'm gonna talk just like a brief second about that disclosure and how we can manage it. But I wanted to start today. For those of you guys that don't know me, I'm Jaclyn. I am the compliance officer here in the office, as well as the PC mentorship coach, as well as a broker. So I'm always around here doing something. So good morning.
I'm Sebastian.
Yes, I know who you are.
Well, some people don't know.
Yes.
Oh my
Okay, so I'm just gonna go through the contract really quick, not in depth, because that's like hours and hours class, but kind of things that are getting missed in the contract right now on offers that are kind of important, things you don't want to miss, or you don't want to put on your offer, or you do want to put on your offer. So if you guys have your computers, you can pull up your car forms and look at it yourself. Otherwise, I'll have it up on the screen for you. So this is a regular purchase agreement, pretty normal since we all learned it in December if you were here. But there's a couple spots on here that are having some issues, not issues, just things you can start adding to your offers. So I just want to make note of those. So on the second page, we have Q1, the paragraph Q1, and that is for a seller credit. So now that the market's shifting a little bit, we're seeing a lot more credits being added where that can go towards closing costs. This box was like obsolete 6 months ago. But is it G1? I cannot see. I'm sorry. G1. Sorry. I don't think so. Oh yeah, maybe. Oh yeah. Okay. So G1, where it says seller credit, and in there you can do an actual amount or you can do a percentage. So just make note of that you guys can't ask for those in your offers. And that is where you would put it. It's automatically going to be applied to closing costs, or you can specify, but it's got to be closing costs most likely. Now on the flip side, if you have a listing and you're looking at offers, do not miss this box, because if the buyers ask for that and you guys agree and you miss it, you just agreed for your sellers to give up $10,000 in closing costs or whatever it is. So make sure you're making note of that. There's going to be numbers in those fields now. No, that's okay. So for the G1, if you're writing the offer and you want to ask for closing costs for your buyer, this is the section you put that in. If you're on the flip side for a seller, you want to make sure you're reading that correctly. You guys are countering that out if your seller doesn't agree. Just be cautious and pay attention. This box was empty, and now it's going to start being filled up for sure. Okay. Everything else with contingency periods, all pretty normal. You're going to start seeing contingency periods not changing. So like, in the last 2 years, we've been asking for inspection contingencies to be removed within 7 days. That's going to be harder to ask for now. I'm still doing like 10 days, 10 to 12 days, but the contract defaults to 17. So a lot of offers that are coming over, we're noticing they're not putting anything in there. They're just leaving it to 17. So just be aware of that if you're on the selling side and you're at 17 days for all contingencies, that's, a good almost 3 weeks into your escrow, but they could still back out, get their deposit back. So just be cautious of that. As you guys are accepting offers, and if you're on the buying side, try to get them to give you 17 days. You can leave it at that. The possession section right here, if they're going to stay in the property, the client or the sellers, make sure when you guys open escrow, before you open escrow, you have those documents in place. You have the seller to remain in possession in place, the SIP form. It'll attach those forms for you when you click these boxes. Just have that all worked out ahead of time. We're seeing issues with sellers staying in the property longer than they should. Or they agree to, oh, we'll do 3 to 5 days, and then you open escrow, and the seller's like, actually, I need 2 weeks now. And nobody got the form signed, so now you're having an issue. Get that signed before you guys open escrow. Don't open escrow until you guys agree to how long you're gonna let those sellers stay in, because ultimately your buyers are gonna be mad at you if they thought it was 5 days, and now, like, why didn't you get the form signed before you open escrow? Yeah.
So I'm a branding agent,
Yeah.
so this is like, I don't know what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
Can you just kind of point like what section you're on?
Yeah, so right here, where it says,
Okay.
seller occupied or vacant unit,
Okay.
normally you're given, let me make it a little smaller. Normally you're given, you get the keys when it reports. So close of escrow reports, your buyers are handed the keys. But if the seller needs to stay for a couple of days extra, or needs 2 weeks to have the property before they move out, there's these extra forms that get signed. The SIP is the most common, and that's for 29 days or less. And then the RLAS is like a lease back, basically longer than 30 days, you have to use your own form. And so this SIP should be signed with the initial offer. Everything should be signed before you open escrow. Because a seller can say, yeah, I'll do the 3 days, but nothing's in writing. You guys kind of, you just talked about it, and you don't have that form. Oh, here. Yes, okay. I don't know how to use an iPad, obviously. So just have that signed ahead of time before you guys open escrow, because once you're in escrow, it's much harder to negotiate. Like the sellers are like, no, I'm not doing that, or the buyer, you know, just have it all agreed upon ahead of time. These are just some of the issues we see, that's why I'm addressing them. They happen, you know, every day in the office, so. And if there's tenants, if you have a property in escrow with tenants in it, make sure, especially if you're new, you guys talk to myself and Sophia, someone in here, because tenants are a whole nother thing. You have to have other disclosures signed. And you want the property to be delivered vacant if possible, unless your client's an investor and they're gonna let those tenants stay and do a new lease with them. There's all kinds of extra things, and we're noticing now that the moratorium's been lifted, it's a whole nother, like, renters are having a really hard time because there's no rentals, rents are going up more, and so you just wanna make sure your buyers aren't gonna be stuck in a position where the tenants, stay and they're having to deal with that process. So definitely reach out to someone if that is the case on one of your properties that you're putting an offer in on. Okay, everything else is pretty normal costs. But Q5 and Q6 are a common issue. So what Q5 and Q6 are these government required point of sale inspections and government required point of sale corrective or remedial actions. If you have a buyer, you can put seller to pay for those, that's fine, do it. But if you are on the side, do not agree to do that. You're gonna wanna take that out on a counter. The reason being is you're leaving it open-ended, that if there was some kind of, say the home's 1945, and it's not up to code, you're now leaving this open-ended repair that it needs to be up to code. So it's very, very important when you guys, on your listing, you counter out these two, Q5 and Q6, just always counter them out.
With the correct verbiage.
Q5 and Q6 are removed from the contract.
That's only if you have a listing?
Yes. If you're on the buying side, go ahead and ask for it. If the other side doesn't do it, then that's on them. So if anything comes up, then they already agreed to cover it. But it's very, very important. There has been, not in our office, $100,000 repairs because of this paragraph.
I guess I agree on the stuff on the code.
What was that? So it is still applicable here. It doesn't come up as much here because the houses are newer. But LA and San Diego, it comes up a lot. We had one in LA that was scary. So just, it worked out, but yeah, these are older homes. But there's older homes in Elsinore, Heme, I mean, and it is applicable.
So how does one know when these are government required section?
That's the problem, is you don't really know until, you don't know until they either do a home inspection and call out certain things. The lender could call out certain things, like if it's FHA, then what if there's no furnace and you already agreed? You want that to all be done in your request for repairs. So it's just open-ended. You just don't want anything open-ended in your agreement that your seller's agreeing to until you know what those costs are gonna be. It's not saying your seller's not gonna do it. It's just has to be negotiated when you know the prices. Same with termite, like I always say that with termite, don't agree that you're gonna do a clearance on termite until you know the price. So I'll see agents contracts come through and they say termite to be done by seller and clearance to be given by seller. But they never even got a termite report and their seller just agreed. What if there's like $10,000 worth and it has to be tenanted and all that stuff, you know? So just don't agree to those things in the original contract. You can always work it out on the request for repair. Okay. Other terms, anything can go in this section. So if there's anything else you guys are wanting to ask, make sure it's in the other terms. You can do termite up here in Q2, where it says termite report, or put termite report in there, seller to cover that, but I would also ask for section 1 clearance, which is the house being clear of the termite infestation if there was one. You can ask for that there. Some agents move it down to the other terms, and that's fine as well. Either way is fine, wherever it fits. And we're definitely seeing buyers ask for termite again. So start doing it.
Is it being paid for now?
Uh-huh.
It is.
Mhm.
Is it me or am I the only one that thinks Jaclyn is so pretty?
Oh my God. Thank you. Who said that? She's not on mute.
Is that Isabel?
Okay, thank you.
It's not just you, Isabel. It's not just you. She's gorgeous.
Oh my God.
Now that's LaShonda, if you couldn't tell.
It's not just you.
Oh my God. Okay, so, okay, I think that's it on the contract for now. Okay, so that's pretty much it on the contract. Obviously, the contract's really, really long. I will do another whole contracts class for you new agents. It's like hours to go through each section, but I will do that probably before the end of the year. So you guys, that's all we'll do in the class. So you guys know what you're signing. It's very long. So let me go to the listing agreement now. There's a couple things I wanted to point out in there. Oh my gosh, it's so long.
Jaclyn, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
but I'm a new agent too, and before I was able to get it, and I guess it's been a while, where do you get this, I'm in my,
Car forms?
yeah,
Yeah.
it looks to me like they update this stuff and change everything around.
Yeah, so go to transactions center.
So I-
Yep. And then it will get you in there and then it will have your different items.
Okay.
Continue your transaction. They'll probably open a new window. Yeah. Log you in and then it's under all forms. It's not
Yeah, from there I'll get it. It seems like
Okay.
so many clicks before, like these.
Everyone gets caught up on how to get into car and there's no easy way. I haven't found it. So, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's the end of that. Okay, so I put it in this specific order. Okay, so before we move on to the listing contract, this form is being added to a lot of contracts now. Contingency for sale of buyer's property. So now you have a buyer that wants to put an offer in on a home, but they have to sell their home in order to qualify to buy that new home. Okay, so that's what this form is for. If your offer includes that, there's a spot in the contract that you have to check, a little box that says that's part of the offer. I should show you guys that. Let me show you real quick. On page 2 in L8. So right here, sale of buyer property, car form, cop attached. So you guys ever hear me say the cop form? That's what I'm talking about. The buyer has to sell their home in order to buy this home.
Well, there was an L2 sale.
L2, yeah. And then I'm gonna go over that form because some things are getting missed in it. So basically, this form it's a buyer contingency, just like their inspection, appraisal, loan contingency. But if they don't sell their home, they can back out of the contract. And so you have to fill out specific terms here. And so it's really important. For number one, it always needs to just be A. You're not gonna check anything. Because, well, yes, on this one, I'm gonna get to this part, but buyer entering in contract for sale of and closing. You don't wanna say just getting into contract, because then that's it. Once they get into contract, you have to remove the contingency. If they have to sell their home to buy this other home, they can't just get into contract, they have to close. So you're gonna leave it defaulted to A. And then buyer entering into contract for sale of property, buyer shall have 17 days after acceptance, or you can put another amount in there. So say they need a little bit more time to get their house sold. 17 is the norm. Sometimes you can get sellers to agree to a little longer depending on the property, but 17 is the norm. And then listing, this section is gonna be buyer has signed a listing agreement, which they really should have signed a listing agreement if you're trying to get the seller to accept the offer. Yeah. You really want it to be on MLS too, if you can. But we've seen them get through where they literally just signed a listing contract and they put an offer on the home and they took it. So, but you're gonna have to fill in all of this information. So buyer has signed a listing agreement, or buyer's property will be submitted to the MLS. And, or it will not be submitted to the MLS if they're not putting it on the MLS, which you just need to put in all the details here. And then close of escrow, they have basically, buyer has until the following time to close escrow on their property, which is the scheduled close of escrow, and you have to provide that to the other side. And that you're gonna keep them informed of the process. And then it kind of just talks about that they can take backup offers. So your buyer needs to be aware that if this seller all of a sudden gets another offer, they could potentially take that offer unless you can get them to sign that they can't. If you check this box, you're filling out one of these for the first time, just sit down with one of us because it is important.
What number is that?
It's on 7C. And it's the 3. No right to notify buyer or seller shall not have the right to invoke the provisions of 7B, which is basically taking backup offers during the entire term. If I'm on the listing side, I'm not gonna agree to that, 100% never. So if you have a listing and you get a contingency, I would not advise you to agree to that because you basically just gave the buyer 17 days to get their property in escrow and lost all that time to market the property for your seller. So you don't want to agree to it on the listing side, but on the buying side, you of course want them to try to agree to that. So your buyer can't, all of a sudden someone comes in with another offer, then they could potentially push you guys out because they haven't sold their house yet. So there's different strategies to kind of use when you guys are filling these out. I just wanted to make note of that because I'm noticing that buyers aren't aware is what's happening. So buyers get in a contract and then all of a sudden someone comes on the selling side and says, okay, we got another offer. Can you guys remove your contingencies? And they're like, no. The buyer's like, what do you mean? Like, how come we're pushed out? It's because of this form, and it's mainly just letting your clients know that the buyers know, like, hey, they can accept a backup offer. You guys don't remove these contingencies, and it's only fair to the sellers, to be honest, because they're not going to sit and wait forever for your buyer's house to sell. You know, that's not fair to them on that side. So it's just having that conversation with your buyer. That's where we're really seeing an issue is the buyers just aren't aware and they're mad at their agent because their agent didn't explain that to them. Yes.
So the wording is a little confusing, so if you're on the list side, what should we check on?
Nothing. It's just gonna be the immediate right to notify buyer. Basically, as soon as something else comes in, you are gonna let them know right away.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. This form is used when you're a buyer or when you're on the listing side?
It's used as a buyer in your offer, but then the listing side is going to, you're gonna read this and make sure you're not putting your sellers in a bad position. So it's you're gonna see it on both sides. It's just a buyer is gonna use this in a contract to offer on a house. If they have to sell a house.
Is it a new form?
No, it's been here. We just, nobody was selling their house. Yeah, no, so it's been here. But in the last 2 years, no seller was taking an offer to get a selling house. Because they had 20 offers on their house. So they're not gonna take it. So now this is where the form is kind of, we're seeing it a lot more on offers. Because buyers are like, yay, I can go buy a house and upgrade and sell my current home. And I have a chance. You used to not have a chance. So yeah, so I don't wanna like confuse you guys. Honestly, if you're writing an offer for a client and you need help with this form, have them talk to one of us because we'll help you. And then if you're on the selling side and you receive one of these, like, come talk to us. Okay, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt again, guys, but, Jaclyn, I'm sorry. This is not on the residential purchase agreement, right? So it's got complete other form?
Yeah, it's a whole separate form, but when you check the box on the residential purchase agreement, it will attach this form to your
Can you
offer.
show me what box you clicked? Because I'm lost. I can't.
Yeah,
find the
it's,
page.
you go to all your forms, go to all of them. You're not gonna be able to check it.
Oh, okay, I got
Yeah,
it.
go to all forms and then type in up there, just type in COP and then it'll pull up for you.
Okay, that's what I was gonna.
Yeah, just do that. And then contingency, yep, that one.
All right,
And it'll pull up for you.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, and then last thing on this form, where it says on number 11, time for performance of contract. So this box is important. You're gonna wanna check this if you have a buyer. 100%. Because what it means is when the buyer, when you guys open escrow, say the seller accepts your offer, you guys open escrow starts and all the timeframes start. So your inspection, your appraisal, loan contingencies, all that stuff starts unless you check this box. And what that means is once the buyer, if the buyer, we're waiting for their house to sell, we're waiting for their house to sell for, a week, 2 weeks. We're just kind of waiting. As soon as their house goes into escrow, then you guys can start your inspections and all the time frames start. You have to remove the contingency of their house when we get to contract, the buyer's house. So does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
I use this as a meeting.
Yeah, to you, I know, it's very confusing. If you're new guys, this is like, we're just seeing these forms a lot, so I just wanna address that. Like Derek has one right now, I know he'll let me use this as an example. The 11A, if you have a buyer, if you're putting this on your buyer's contract, check that box.
Okay.
Yes. Because otherwise you guys open escrow and your buyer has to start doing their inspections, doing their appraisal, and their house has to be sold.
But the seller, you wanna counter that.
Exactly.
In case they cancel, you already have the inspection.
Exactly, but if the seller does it, good for you. Like, really, because you don't want your buyer putting all this money out, and then in the interim, the seller can go get another offer, their house doesn't sell, there's a lot of what ifs. So, you start paying for inspections and appraisals, you're looking at, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. So that's why you want to check that for your buyer. And if the seller agrees. And I've noticed like a lot of agents don't know, they don't know that. And then you get into escrow and they're like, okay, when are you guys doing your inspection? I'm like, we're not. And they're like, what? And then you point them to that paragraph. So yeah, it sucks to be you. Okay. Okay, this next form is the representative capacity signature disclosure. This one comes up every day in compliance, and basically what it is it's a form for someone that's signing on behalf of an entity. So if the house is in a trust, if it's in a estate, if it's a power of attorney, a corporation, LLC, whatever it is, if the title comes up as that, this form needs to be signed. And it needs to specify that whoever's name is on the trust, so like the most common is a trust. Property is held in a trust and the full name of the trust is, and you have to write the full name of the trust. And then who's allowed to sign, their name goes down here. So a lot of people put their houses in trust now and both people are alive. That's totally fine, but it's still a trust. We still need to have this form stating that they are allowed to sign on behalf of that trust. Even going further, we would like to have that trust paperwork that says they're allowed to sign in our file, but escrow definitely will have to get it. So when they get everything to escrow, you can always ask them for a copy to verify that they're allowed to sign on behalf of that trust. LLCs are hard because sometimes there's multiple signers. So you'll get, my rule in here is if it's an LLC and maybe there's 5 people that can sign, they have to, yeah, and one person can sign, that's fine if they're given full authority to sign. If not, if it's between all 5, they all 5 have to sign everything in the file, disclosures, everything. So we're seeing some where someone is in charge of signing offers, someone's in charge of signing disclosures, you know, and I'm like, no, we need to have everyone signing everything. That's just how it has to be. So unless they have documents in their LLC that states who, yes. Because we don't know, we're not part of their LLC. And we need to make sure, for especially our buyers, that we're protecting them, that who's signing is the one that's legally allowed to sign. So that's what this form is. It needs to be attached to your contracts, listing, or usually it starts with the listing side. When you take a listing, if it's in a trust, you're gonna have this signed with your listing contract.
Even if you have like a power of attorney?
Yeah, so people have power of attorneys. Those I usually ask for the paperwork of the power of attorney, and you guys need to sign the way the power of attorney reads. Yeah. So, you know, if you guys have ones that come up, like especially power of attorney, sometimes they're super long and it won't even help it. I know we've talked about that before. Yeah. So, you know, we can assess it, and you know, if you guys run into an issue, yeah, just ask me. Just ask me, it's fine. We do have on page 16, I think, of the RPA, there now is a section, I'll just go back and show you guys. There's a section that says entity under the names. So see how it says buyer signature, and then it says entity buyers, where you check B. Up there. This can be filled out in place of the RCSD if you guys know if it's like the buyer or the seller does it, you guys sign the contract. We don't need that RCSD as long as they write the name of the trust, who's the authorized signer. It does not ever happen. This is new on the contract, and like sellers, they'll say, well, we are a trust, like we don't need the RCSD form. I'm like, yes, you do, because you didn't fill it out on this page of the contract. If it's not filled out on this page of the contract, you have to get the RCSD form. CARD just added that to be helpful. It's not helpful because they just think like we're entity buyers and they don't check the box and fill in the sections.
That's our page, right?
Yes, this is the last page where everyone signs. So the buyer signs, and if it's a buyer that is, see how it says, if this paragraph is completed, the RCSD is not required, but they have to fill this in, and they don't. So if this is not filled in, and you guys know it's in a trust, we're gonna need the RCSD form. Same with the seller down here, where it says seller, and it has all their entity information. Or where does it have theirs? Yeah, up there. If they fill this in, we don't need the RCSD because they put it in here instead. And CARD specifically states we don't need it as long as it's filled in. But a lot of times sellers won't. When they sign your offer, they just leave it all blank and just literally put a signature here and that's it. And then they don't want to fill out the RCSD. We need it now. They can't go back and add it on here after the fact. We need the form. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions?
So if the seller,
Yeah.
so if we submit an RPA, right, you negotiate and talk with the seller agent.
Yep.
You get that information on the, that trust part on page 16. You fill that all in, and then after that, when it's fully executed, it's good.
Yes. As long as all that page on page 16 is filled out, it's good. You don't need that extra disclosure anymore.
Okay.
But if one thing's missing from that, like the name of the trust, that's always what's missing. We need the RCSD signed by everybody. Okay?
Question.
Yeah.
If seller, take out, trust,
Yeah.
before put the property in
The market.
the market,
That's fine. If whatever title shows at the time of the contract, then that's how it has to be signed. So that's why it's important when you guys are writing offers to pull up a property profile. Realist is pretty accurate on the MLS, but not always. So pull a property profile and it should say who's on title. With trust too, sometimes other sides don't want to give you the RCSD form because they're like, oh, it's the two people that are on the trust signing. It's a husband and wife. They just put it in a living trust. A lot of people have those nowadays. We still need the form because what if there's other kids on it or something that have to sign? We don't know what the trust says. Just because you assume, or a lot of people's trusts say, you know, like it could be Jaclyn Copeland Living Trust. Well, to, you know, us, it looks like that's the only person that should be signing, but we don't know what the trust says. So we can't assume anything. There could be a kid that needs to sign per my instructions on that trust if any property is being sold or someone else, you know? So a lot of agents are like, but it's the person, they live there, you know? And I'm like, I understand, but we don't know what the trust says, who has to sign.
So the property profile will reveal the other.
It should say who's, well, it will say the name of the trust, and some names are the actual like last name of the owners, or they're both their names and last name. It just depends what people name their trust. Some people name their trust weird stuff. It's like some weird name. So yeah, weird trust name. Yeah.
The chubby cheeks.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally her trust name. So who's supposed to sign, you know? Even though she's living, you know?
But the property profile will reveal who those other members are.
No, the property profile won't. That's the trust paperwork though.
Okay.
So that's why when you guys fill out your offers, if it just says Chubby Cheek Crew,
Yeah.
you have to put that as the name of the trust, and then they have to fill out the RCSD or page 16 and say who the authorized signers are.
Okay.
In a perfect world, I would love to see the trust documents in our command files. The reality is a lot of people don't want to share their trust documents because they're personal. They don't want them floating around to every agent. But escrow is different. Escrow will require them to, you know, show who is allowed to sign. You can't sign a grantee without verifying it. So because you have to sit with a notary and all that kind of stuff. Card forms are a little different. So on my transactions within a trust, I will ask escrow, hey, they're the legal signers. I check escrow instructions, make sure they're the legal signers. But if your client on a listing, if they give you the trust paperwork, cool, like you'll know, it'll say right in the paperwork. And there's specific pages. They don't have to give you the whole trust. They can just give you certain pages. So it's a little bit more investigation, you know. Okay, so on listing, this is a listing contract. I just want to go over a couple of things real quick on this. Let me get back to my notes because I'll go off topic. So listing has the same disclosures all at the beginning. Okay, so biggest thing on listing contracts right now, you're gonna have the date prepared at the top, and you're gonna have the beginning date and ending date. This is important for MLS compliance. So if you take a listing and you put the beginning date as today, the listing now has to be on the MLS within 2 days. Yeah. Yes. Okay, that's okay though. You can modify it, you can do other forms, but yes, the sound, which is the seller to exclude it, and I'll go over that in a second. But that you have to, so say you're going to the house and you're gonna take the listing and you wanna start the date, you know, next week, and you know you're not gonna have pictures, it might not be on the MLS. Just be prepared. It's okay that the date is in there wrong, but you're gonna have to do some kind of other form to counteract that date. Because if MLS comes back at us and we don't have a form to supplement this, we're out of compliance. So we don't want that. So put the beginning date as whatever you want. Just know if you don't get the house on the MLS in 2 days, you're gonna need that extra form. It's not a huge deal, but just know you're gonna need that. The price goes in here, any other terms go in here, your compensation, all that. I'm not gonna go into all those things right now. But I just want to show you where you can put incoming soon and sell. So down here, coming soon status. Does anyone, who knows how many days you have for coming soon?
21 days.
21 days. That is it. They will not extend it. So just know that. If you're putting something in coming soon status, you have 21 days before it will go active. And there's another form on the MLS that's coming soon, and it has to be signed by your sellers. It has to, and I will ask you for it in compliance. So we have it, and it's not in your car forms, it's on the MLS. So we need the coming soon, when it's gonna come on. If they don't authorize it, then you check that does not authorize it to put in coming soon. That should be checked if you're just gonna go active with your listing. It gets missed every contract, but it should be checked. And then seller instructs broker for sell if you're gonna do a beginning date later. So say you're taking a listing contract today, because ultimately we wanna get the contract signed the day we talk with the clients. So your date on your terms could be today, but you know you're not getting pictures till next Wednesday. So you figure out the dates, okay, I should have it on by Friday, that's your goal. You can put that in here, or this date. That will take care of it in the contract. I don't need a sell if you put the date in here. So that will help you. If you know at the time of listing, just put the date in there. If nothing's there, I'm gonna come back and ask you for a sell form, which is basically seller excluded it till this date, and then it has to match the MLS. And I go through and look at that on compliance, I check them.
What do you do if the seller tells you a complete, I forgot, because there's a way of doing it when they don't want it just basically a ghost listing, that doesn't have to be on the MLS, they don't want it.
They don't want it, then you have to have the selling form. And the selling is seller excludes listing.
Is it on this, some of this paperwork, or no, it's a different form?
It's a different form. There's actually a box here that you can check, but you have to have it signed, that selling form saying they never want to do the MLS. It's a separate form in CAR.
But it is here though.
Yes, it's in CAR. Yeah, it's the SELN. It's a form in CAR. And it's not very likely. Most people want their house to be on the MLS, but some people don't want it on the MLS.
It's right there.
Yeah. The bottom right here, which one? Oh, yeah. So some people don't. The other rule with compliance on the MLS, like some people will say, well, I don't really want like pictures. Can you just put like one picture?
Or a lockbox.
Yeah, or a lockbox, which will be here in a second. You know, you can have one picture, that's fine, but you have to have a picture. The MLS will not just allow to have nothing on there. So if your clients are like, I only want one picture in front of the house, okay, you know, that's fine, but yeah, do you want to sell your house in this market? Okay, so it does have another section, this part right here, this isn't happening as much anymore, but it was with the letters. That was violating fair housing. Buyers would give letters, I love your house, my kids are this, blah, 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 like it was violating fair housing. And so you could check here, seller instructs broker to present them or not. We were giving sellers telling them, you know, you can take the letters, but just know you may be violating fair housing. And people are getting sued for that now. So, yeah, like sellers, because they like picked buyers based off, oh, you're like my family. You cannot do that. You just can't. Okay, so it's not as big of an issue anymore, but just be cautious of that with your buyers or your sellers.
Could the agent sue them, or?
So really where like lawsuits are coming is buyer's agents, you know, how many of you had multiple offers in and you knew the other agent was doing something weird or they were picking people off, not the best offer maybe, or not even considering your offer. There's some double ending, so those are getting looked at, double ending ones, you know, so if you're gonna get in trouble when an agent turns you in. That's usually when you get in trouble. So be nice to agents if you can. I know that they're not always nice, but buyer's agents got bitter because they're like, I'm putting in 20 offers, and it's like people are doing shady stuff on the other side, and so they're gonna report you. So there's agents that have been reported and now they're getting in trouble for taking double ending. There's been agents that never presented other offers at all. They just double ended it. You can't do that. You have to present every offer to your sellers, no matter what. Even if you're in escrow and you get other offers, you need to let your seller know, hey, I received an offer for this, I know we're in escrow, but you need to let them know. You're just the representative in between. But, you know, there's a lot of agents out there that are trying to, you know, and we all want to double end stuff, but do it legally. You can do it. Our broker allows it, but you just want to make sure you covered all your bases. And if you're in that situation, you want to make sure your seller, like there's a spot on the contract where they can initial saying they did review this offer and send it back to the buyer's agent. My seller did review your offer, but they went with another offer. That's gonna cover you in court because look, we presented it, my seller signed it right here on this date. There's a spot that says it.
Like, the one thing you mean that's exactly the same as a dual agent, basically, but
Yeah.
they're representing buyer and seller.
So like agents that have listings, you know, they get multiple offers, but then they have buyers calling them, can you write an offer for me? Can you write an offer? And then they're like trying to get the seller to take that offer. So that one. So we're not running into that as much anymore, but the last couple years it was getting pretty bad. So just be cautious of that. Sign and lockbox are all on this last page. If they don't want to sign, you're gonna check does not authorize a sign. And then does not authorize a key safe box in 15. And then 16. If they want them, you don't need to check anything. If they don't, you can check that there so you know.
That's like a super, right? That's an actual, like a
Both.
combo.
No, both. Any key box, any key, safe, lock box, anything. If they don't want any of them, then you would check does not want any of those. And then down here in additional terms, it has like if it's in a trust, you would check that trust advisory, or this is a big one, if seller has to buy another home and they can't sell this one until they find another home, that's where that seller contingency comes in place. So when you're taking a listing, make sure you talk to your seller. Where are you going? What are you doing? Make sure they understand that once they go into contract with someone, that's it. They can't back out because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't find a house, or I don't know what I'm doing now. They need to be aware that if they sign a contract from the buyer and go into escrow, they can't just back out. Sellers don't have contingencies. Only buyers do. The only contingency a seller can have is if they have to buy another home. So you want to make sure you have that form signed before you open escrow. You don't want to sign it after you guys open escrow and then just figure it out. It needs to be signed. That form and the COP are coming back. So just be aware of those. That's it. The entity part again, you know, if it's in a trust, you can have them fill that out here. You would still have to do it on the RPA though. This is just the listing contract. The listing contract's only between you and the sellers. The buyers never see the listing contract. So you would still have to do it on the actual offer, the RPA. Okay, anyone have questions on the listing contract? How many days? Put it in MLS?
1,
2.
2 days.
Yeah.
Sure.
So now I read my listing contract.
Yeah.
We execute it. We have it till the end of the year. And, for whatever reason, we went into escrow, whatever stuff this has happened.
Yeah.
Now my seller wants to cancel.
Okay,
Does the contract give for them to cancel?
the contract does not. So if you have a listing contract with an end term, that contract does not expire until that date. You can hold on to that contract until that.
But I'm a
date.
seller, I want you to cancel.
They can't, legally they can't, but that's where you get into, do I want to keep marketing this property? If they're not gonna let me, because what they can do is they can just, oh, I'm not doing any showings. They can start, you know, causing issues, which is usually what happens, because they wanna get out.
Okay, so if I decide to cancel, it still doesn't give us any way to cancel it.
No. They can't cancel it. You're just, you can withdraw it. People, I have seen like agents hold on to them. So we had one in here where he wanted to take the listing, but they were in an active listing contract until a certain date, and the agent would not take it off. He's like, nope, because he had issues with the seller, and like, he was like, I'm not doing it. Couldn't show it, couldn't anything, so we had to wait to take our new listing when that time So if you guys run into that situation, because we will, people are gonna start wanting to cancel with certain agents because they don't feel like they're doing a good job, or they just want to take their house off the market. I'm not saying that's your case, but like, that's what will start happening. I just don't want to sell my house now, or you're not getting people in here, or whatever their reason is. You're in a contract with them for 90 days, 120, whatever you sign your listing agreement to. And they can't back out, or they can't cancel that contract with you just because they feel like it. But it really comes down to, okay, do I want to keep dealing with them? They're not gonna let me show the house, so what's the point?
Right.
But, you know, it's one of those like gray areas of, you know, case by case, like how to handle it.
I know, but I think we have a listing agent, a seller right now, she's out there.
Yeah.
But, and we have like 2 pages of everything that's happened,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's just the market,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I want to be canceled, I want to be canceled, we call our legal, it's like, well, the contract doesn't give any of that. So right now you're saying like, it depends, but we can't cancel either.
You can let them out, you can let them out of the contract with cancellation. You can. They just can't get out because they want to get out. So I cancel listings with people just because I'm like, we're done. They're just, yeah. So you can, you would do a cancellation. I actually have a cancellation listing in my class, but yeah, you can. But I would definitely, in that case, there is a spot in the listing contract. I'll show you guys really quick. I wasn't gonna go over it because it is kind of confusing, but where it says 90 days.
Yes, so the beginning.
Yep, right here in 3, 2. I put 90 days there. And what that means is if someone, say your contract expired or canceled or anything, and someone came to that property after your contract was up within 90 days, and you could prove that that buyer came through and you had the contract, you could be entitled to a compensation. It's pretty hard to get, like you have to prove it. Ways you can prove it is through Supra. Like, you know that agent took a specific client and you got their pre-approval letter, and you knew they went, I mean, you have records. What's happening now is a lot of agents aren't providing pre-approvals, which is kind of annoying. But if you have a pre-approval, you have that buyer's name on there and you have their agent taking them. You know, we do everything through text pretty much. So you know that they went to that house and then they go and buy it. And you see on the, you know, the tax record that they bought it. You could potentially go after those sellers, the seller, for a commission. And they would have to pay you a commission, but you'd have to go to court. It's not just gonna happen. I mean, you could.
They gonna slay you on Google review,
Yeah.
you can do that. So,
Right there.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's what it says, right? That's what it potentially says. So that, and it's a contract, so, but yes, you're correct, they can do that.
So,
And they probably would.
yeah, what if, so the seller wants to get out?
Mhm.
We can let them out.
Yeah.
If the seller wants to be a jerk about it, could they just reject all offers?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's,
I mean, just not get out, I mean, in their way, just being, you know, like a brick wall, just reject all offers.
yeah, I mean, they don't have to take any offer, they don't have to show it, they don't have to do anything. So that's where it gets where you have to do a case by case. Do I want to deal with this client out of spite and just hold on to the listing so no one else? Where people hold on to them is when they're bugged at each other, they're fighting, and then they just go, well, now you can't go list with anyone. Sucks to be you. But then your comment to that, or not even to that, but they could go review you and say, this agent kept me in a contract, or what, you know, it's really like, what are you willing to deal with? Because some sellers just, it's better to walk away.
I actually use that as a seller in my listing, in my listing consultations. I tell them, like, look here, agents can lock you in and you be responsible to pay commission. I was like, well, my word is my bond. So I use that to build rapport with them. And I say, hey, I won't even put any time in here.
Yeah,
Because
you can do
I
that.
stress it out, the agent, probably all your needs, whatever, that's how it is at the time. And he said, oh, thanks for doing that. It's out here.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like with sellers right now, we're in this weird shift, and sellers are still like over here that I can do whatever I want and get whatever I want, and I'm gonna tell these buyers what's up, and that's not the case. And so as we get out of that a little more, they realize like, hey, you don't have all the power. Every week when I get my market updates, like the seller's market is like here now, like it's even, it's been like here and it's gonna be over to buyers probably in the next less than a month in most of our areas. So they're losing that leverage. So if you just set those expectations up front, it's been hard the last couple months. Just had on the scene that it was like the week that rates are changing, they're like, what's going on? I'm like, oh my gosh, like everyone's freaking out, you know? So it was crazy. But as it calms down a little bit, it'll be easier, but just set those expectations. Hey, you know, if in 2 weeks we don't have any offers in or we're not having a lot of showings, how do you feel about a price reduction? I'll provide the comps, I'll talk about that when we take the listing. It's better to not get it and waste your time if they're not even gonna do that. If they're not serious about selling and taking a price reduction, why do you want to be wasting your money marketing and open houses and all these things if they're not going to be realistic? So have those expectations up front with them. And you know, most of my sellers in a normal market, you say, in 3 weeks, we're gonna reassess it and see where we're at. Are you open to that? Do you guys wanna sell your house? You know, if they're like, they just wanna see what we get, you're probably not gonna get it. And if you can tell when you take the listing, like, is this listing gonna be hot and we're gonna have a lot of buyers or not, you know? If you guys have been doing open houses, you see less buyers walking through open houses.
Yeah.
You know, so why waste your time marketing and doing all that? I'd rather just not take the listing if you're gonna put money out and be out money instead. So really assess that when you're taking a listing and how serious the buyer or sellers are. Some of them will just put it up and be like, you're out pictures and all this stuff. So, okay. Addendum, I know it's like such a basic form, but I just wanted to go over, it defaults that you're doing an addendum to the purchase agreement and you need to number them. So if you're doing an addendum for whatever your term changed in the contract, it defaults to the purchase agreement, you put that number 1 there, number 2, number 3, whatever. But if it's an addendum to like say a disclosure, like a transfer disclosure statement or something else, check other and it starts with 1. It's not like 5 because you did 4 more to the purchase agreement. Some TCs are very strict on that. I'm not super strict if you know the terms, whatever, it's not a big deal. But sometimes we have things change on the transfer disclosure statement or the SPQ, those disclosures, and you can do an addendum, just make sure you check the right boxes. Okay, so that's why I wanted to point out that one because people get lost in addendums. I just had one that had like 7 addendums and they were for all different forms. Okay, the agent acknowledgement form, this is if you guys have multiple, so like teams, you guys are if you guys are working together on a transaction, you need to have this filled out. So like Gutierrez team, I have them fill this out because Hector and Aurora are both licensed and they're both gonna be talking to the client, but Hector may be the only one that signs everything. Aurora just signs this one that says she's authorized to talk to the client. So the client says, I talked to Aurora the whole time, but Hector signed everything. We have this form to say that. So if it's more applied to a team or if you're working with another agent on a file, you need to have both of your license numbers in there and your names. And that has to be signed by all parties, so they're aware. Okay, verification of property condition. This is a big one right now. Well, not as much anymore, but it still is with SIPs. So verification of property is meant to be done before you close escrow, always, never after you close escrow. But because sellers will stay back in the property for 5 days or 10 days, buyers want to come in after the seller moves out, which is understandable. But what your buyer has to understand is that once it records and closes, the transaction is done. You're, as an agent, your duty, your fiduciary duty to them is done. And so a buyer comes in 10 days later and goes, oh my gosh, the house is thrashed. They're gonna have to deal with the seller in small claims or civil matter. It becomes a civil matter. So I always advise agents to tell their buyers, doesn't matter if the seller's out, still come check the property, make sure it looks good, any repairs were done, still do that before you allow it to close. Because once you allow it to close, you lose a lot of leverage with sellers. They're not gonna be as likely to fix something, you know, that they were supposed to or whatever. So it's very important to do these walkthroughs. You can't, your buyer can't waive it. It's down here, 3. And in this office, I need either this signed or it waived. The buyer signs and agrees. But make sure your buyer understands. A lot of buyers don't understand that they think they can go in 10 days after closing and then all of a sudden, you know, they want you dragged into it and you legally cannot be part of it. They have to go file a civil matter dealing with whatever the seller has to fix for that monetary value or whatever. It just is very, you've got to do these walkthroughs ahead of time. That's it. And you can do another one later. I mean, it's the buyer's house. So they're doing a walkthrough of their own house, essentially. Bless you. So do it out before closing, always. I will never tell you otherwise. Let's see. Okay, cancellation of contracts. I'm almost through. Okay, with just some other stuff that came up between when I was doing this PDF, bless you. The TDS and SBQ are disclosures that everyone fills out. I don't have them on here because this came up today, but when your sellers are filling those out, which only your sellers are to fill those out, if there is a yes, the form specifically states they need to write an explanation. So, you know, you need to let your sellers know that, hey, if there's a yes box check, you need to make sure you fill in this explanation portion for the other side. That gets missed a lot, and a lot of times the other side doesn't care. And, you know, it's ultimately, if the seller fills it out, it's what they wrote, the buyer accepted it, it's fine. But we really should be advising our clients to fill out the disclosures to the best of their ability, which is the disclosure reads, you check yes, fill in the explanation. So if you did some repair, write what that repair is. Don't just check the box yes, because the buyer doesn't know what they did. So they need to write what it is that they did. I don't have the form up here because that just happened to me, but let's see what else, if there's anything else missed on here. I think that's it. Okay, so cancellation of contracts. Unfortunately, we're seeing more of these nowadays. So I just want to explain how these need to be signed. So this one is for if you're canceling an escrow. Hold on, I have the listing. Yeah, cancellation of listing is a separate form. So this is for an escrow. You guys are canceling an escrow. This form has to be filled out. One party has to cancel the transaction underneath, not both. So if the buyer decides they want to cancel, the seller can't go ahead and agree to cancel. There doesn't need to be a mutual agreement. The buyer can just cancel for whatever reason. You want to put, it's usually this first box, buyer's checked, and number 1 is permitted by what paragraph in the contract. You always want to reference a paragraph that it applies to. So say they did their home inspection, and I want to back out because seller won't do repairs, reference that paragraph. I want to give them 11 years thing. Don't quote me on that, but you'll want to reference what the contract says. So that it's just more contractual. You're not just saying they decided to back out because they don't like the house anymore. Do not ever write that. Put a contract. Put something. I've seen it. Like, no, don't write that. Then there's some other options in here, like buyer didn't do certain contingency. You know, seller can cancel on them if they don't meet certain requirements. So there's different options in there, but the most common is the buyer canceling. So you want to make sure that's filled out correctly, and then you have the buyer sign. And then the fun part is their deposit and what happens with the deposit. So down here it says full release of deposit, and you're gonna put the escrow number in on C with which escrow company, and then who releases that. So seller authorizes release of buyer's deposit to buyer less fees and costs. That's the most common. C1 is the most common if the buyer just decided to back out of the contract and they still have contingencies in place and all that. That's the most common. Sometimes the seller might say, okay, you can get out of the contract, but you need to pay us for something. It would be the second box. Usually you're not, but there's options there for you. I'm just going over it with you guys, make sure this is all filled out. And then buyer and seller have to sign. And this goes to escrow. And escrow will do an amendment, and escrow then will release the deposit as authorized. You guys have to give authorization. The seller doesn't sign this, and they are in the wrong, they're going to lose in court. That's just the reality. If there's a contingency in place and the buyer backs out for that contingency and the seller's like, I'm holding out your deposit, I'm not gonna, it happens. It can end up in court because the seller didn't sign this, but you know, they really should be. So both signatures are needed here, one at the top. That's how that one works. And then last one is cancellation of listing. We're seeing some of these come through now because people are canceling on us. We used to just sell your listing in 2 days. But this one is gonna be check A, B, or both. Principal agrees to pay the broker the amount of compensation specified in the listing. That's probably not gonna happen. You're not gonna get your compensation if your listing's being canceled. Where you're gonna go down here, it's gonna be principal owes no compensation to broker. That's the most common. There's other options in here, but I just want you guys to see that there is a separate form for cancellation of listing than an escrow. And then the biggest thing with this form is we have to sign it. Our broker has to sign it, and we have to update the MLS, and we need to do that within 2 days. So when you guys get this signed, principal is gonna be your seller, and then we have to have our office sign it, and we need to update the MLS to be in compliance. So if you are canceling a listing, you cannot go in and change on the MLS yourself. It will not allow you to. The broker has to do that. So you want to make sure you're getting that to fill right away to sign, and then we can go ahead and update it. There is a withdrawal like of listing too, like you were talking about that, and that I believe you can't. They can do withdrawals themselves, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's cancellation is the only one we have to actually do.
Right.
Okay. And Phil, will you explain the difference between cancellation and withdrawal for us? Because I think like people, we get confused, like which one should we be doing?
Hey, everyone. So the difference between a cancellation and withdrawal is a cancellation means you're taking your contractual relationship and you're divorcing, right? A withdrawal basically says that, you know what, I think that the buyer has somebody else that they want to list with. And so you're going, I don't feel right about this. You're a little bit unsettled with it. We will always support your position if it's fair. And we will say, okay, well, we'll tell the clients, we're going to withdraw that listing from MLS. We're no longer going to market it, but we still have a contractual obligation that if you sell that property, you owe me, the office, money. So oftentimes people have a cousin come in, or an aunt, or an uncle, or a friend that says, I'll do the deal cheaper for you. And, you know, they try and basically screw you guys out of the money and effort you put out. When you know, most of your money is spent on the listing right up front. You're paying for the advertising, you're paying for the photographs, you're paying for the staging, you do all the open houses. The next thing you know, cousin Louie comes in and wants to buy the house, right? Well, all that, you guys should get paid for that. And it's very easy for you to say, my broker, blame me. So you don't have to have a heated conversation. Let them call me and tell me why I should let them ask cousin Louie sell the house. You know, I support you guys, the office does. So we just make sure that someone's not going to take advantage of it. So that's why we do it that way. And it does require either my signature, sometimes I can sign.
I'll sign too.
Yeah.
Phil.
Yeah, if I'm not around, so that's it.
Awesome, thank you, Phil. Thanks, Phil. Okay, and then last thing is my last one, supplemental tax disclosure. This is more just a reminder, these need to be in every file, no matter what. It does specify it in that big 16-page disclosure, the statewide. You guys have read through those. It does talk about supplemental, but our office requires you to have this signed by the buyers. Even if you're on the listing side, we need the buyers to sign that. So just make sure your TCs or yourself are signing those, because supplemental tax bills come after the buyer moves in. All of a sudden they get a tax bill and they're coming back going, hey, I wasn't disclosed this. I just like to have this form signed separately from them, that they read through it. They should have read through this and are aware. Even if it's our listing, we want to make sure our buyers have this. And I will come back on compliance and ask it for it. But a lot of other offices don't require this because it's in the SBSA, but I just like to have that separate disclosure. So it's really important that buyers are aware what our supplemental tax is. anything that comes back 6 months or a year later, they're gonna call. They're gonna call their agent, what is this big bill that I owe, you know? So just be aware of that. It's just something that comes up, so. I think that's it, guys. You guys have any questions? And we're gonna eat lunch, and we have some sponsors here that are gonna talk to you about all their good stuff. You guys don't have any questions?
Going twice?
Going twice. I'm out of here. Bye.
Y'all please stay seated.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up for yourselves today and showing up for us. We are your blueprint. As you see on the slide here, we got the rest of the team who's going to be here today. So we got Raul and myself. You got the better half.
Yes.
We are a local credit repair company that does personal and business credit. We're based out of Claremont. We've been doing it for over 13 years. We do have a few agents in the office that are actually utilizing our services. They're pure proof that, you know, communication is key and here for you guys.
Okay, cool.
Through the presentation, if you guys have any questions, just let us know. Stop me, raise your hand and say, hey, George, I got something for you. I got a current case or a current client. And then we'll go from there. All right. So as you guys know, everybody has heard about a credit repair company. You guys have a cousin or know somebody or personally have gone through this, right? Does it work? Is it a scam? There is bad people out there. There is. We stand behind our product. It is not overpriced. It's not a scam. It does work. There is results. We like to go over the slide a lot because I feel like people are so scared of, like, if I have $20,000 in collections, should I pay them off, right? So a lot of the times when you have a client that's dealing with a lender, not to get too much into detail, and you as an agent, you know, they will advise the client, go ahead and pay it off, right? If the lender does not know what goes behind it and you pay something off and it's still reporting negatively on your credit report, on the client's credit report, why even pay it, right? You didn't get any benefit out of it. So it's gonna be marked on there as paid or less than the full amount with a zero balance, and the score is never 1. If I'm gonna pay it off, you know, $20,000 and I can sell it for 10, I get to pay credit repair for a lot less, and it will get deleted like it was never there, right? All right. So does it really work? Again, I went over it. Yes, it does. Credit does not change unless your clients change. You know, the idea of our services is to teach the clients good habits of how we can do it, how they can do it. The idea here is to get the credit professional and the clients to work together. Again, clear communication. Right? So we set up the clients for success. The idea is if they get any correspondence from the bureaus, from the furniture themselves, collection, medical collections, charge-offs, they need to send it to us so we know how to respond back. Okay? So we can delete any negative items on the credit report. Again, deleting items does not result into bringing or boosting up the FICO score. So if you have a client that all they have is negative items, right? And you're deleting history, a lot of times what happens, their FICO scores go down. So does anybody know what percentage of your credit is based on what is called revolving debt? Does anybody know? No? All right. Most scoring systems will tell you that 35% of that is, and it's very true. So if you have you're paying off a car and you have a student loan, right? Your credit is on the 700s, and you're like, yes, my credit's on 700s. You try to apply for a credit card, they're like, nope. Because you don't have enough history, enough revolving credit. So when LOs go over a client's credit and they go, hey, your client doesn't have enough trade lines, they mean current revolving debt, right? It's hard to grade somebody on an auto loan because it's such a long-term loan, right? Where they're not using it monthly and showing that they're paying, but they're good citizens, right? They're good citizens, you're paying back monthly. We got you. All right. So as you go through this, just let me know. Again, when we say some negative items will have to be paid. So let's say you have a client, well, you guys want to know, but we will advise to tell you through the process. Clients, a lot of clients will have garnishments, right? And they don't tell us at the beginning of the process. There's people that have liens, you know, and they know, but they don't know how to go about it. So there's certain items that will have to be paid. Okay. When we say pay, it will be settled. Settle for pennies on the dollar. The idea is to get it paid so they can be either removed or they can be brought back to zero, and then we can go in and dispute the difference. Okay? All right. This is how we operate. So this is our model. This is our bread and butter. The clients will basically schedule a consultation. It's 100% free. The consultation, we are very detailed. We go over every single item in the credit report that has negative remarks. Okay? The idea is to understand what's there, how we can help them, what's the process. If you have a client that's been late for the past 4 months on a credit card, 30-120, and they're like, I need this to be repaired so they can show up as positive, which you can do. How would you guys do it? So if you're lending me money and I say, hey, I'm gonna pay you back, but can you delete those things off of my credit? What would you say? No, you messed up, right? So we're gonna hold you accountable. So if our client is asking, hey, can you delete this negative items? We need to create a pattern for them saying, hey, well, you need to become current with the current negatives and show that you've been okay, so we can go back and repair those. Okay? We do a soft pull. This is $1, but if you go to Experian.com/free and you open your own account, you're able to see your Experian Bureau report for free, right? If you want to see Equifax and TransUnion, you would have to upgrade. And this is what we do with our clients. It's a 7-day free trial. After that, we basically go back and downgrade it for free. Experian got really smart. They're like, I'm gonna keep it for reports. So the minute that you downgrade, it gets canceled. You get an email saying your subscription has been canceled, and you're like, why, right? If it gets canceled, they literally deactivate the account, so you won't be able to open another one. So you're trying to trick us. We're not going to do it. There's ways we advise the client, so the client doesn't have to pay for a monitoring system. If that happens, they will have to pay for a monitoring system, which again, everybody needs one. You need to know what's happening with your credit, right? You know where you stand at all times. It can change from today and tomorrow. Somebody puts a lien, get a late, who knows? Somebody steals their identity, which is so common nowadays. It's so freaking scary, right? Next thing you know, you're like, medical bills. I didn't have a child. What is this? If they have no credit report and we're not able to get a credit report, we will not give them a consultation. Okay, it happens daily. Get a phone call saying, hey, I was referred by so and so. I promise you only have 2 collections. Can you help me? Right? And this is how much they are, and this is how old they are, and I swear it's not mine. Blah blah blah. We listen. We're gonna tell the client if we're not able to see a credit report, we can't give you a consultation. Okay? It's kind of like you submitting an offer without having a pre-approval. Why would you, right? You're wasting your time and you're looking bad. So we won't do that. The clients do get a free 100% portal access that they can look at every 24 hours, 7 days a week if they want to. The portal access, you guys get the same exact access, so you can keep track of your leads. So think of this as being your backup for those deals that are not ready now. They can turn into deals later. You guys, did everybody send this? To listen? Okay, so this is going to give you a affiliate portal access so you can keep track of your clients. So you can go on in the portal, click in there, see where they're at every phase and every step of the way. You guys will get CC'd every 45 days, as the client does, with a progress report saying, hey, this is where you were at, this is where you're at now. Okay, so it's clear.
I use it, it's amazing.
It's
My
great.
clients absolutely love this process and he's so fast. It's literally, you did it the next same day. They're like, okay, I got you right now. And they literally got contacted by him. I can see their progress on like how it's going. So it's easy when they're ready. You can kind of know when they're ready and it's instant.
And we'll let you guys know the minute the client is ready, we pick up the phone and say, hey. Right?
Yeah, but it's not
Too much.
Right.
and they think you actually like work all the time.
You're the hero.
Yeah.
You're the hero. At the end of the day, like I tell everybody, what have your back. Something so funny that she just went over is cancellations, right? So out of nowhere, this person went to church, your buyer or your seller went to church. They told, the pastor, priest, I want to sell my house. They're like, oh, you somebody from a church. So-and-so has their license double, right? People get ideas. Or my neighbor's son's kid just got their license, use it, okay? If the client, your your client tells us, hey, I don't want you to send any more, progress reports to Raul because I don't want to use them as an agent. We're gonna be like, what? No. This person stood by you for 6 months, helped you when you had no credit. This is your hero, and you're gonna say that we're not gonna send them any information. If you don't tell that person and you're not upfront and you are not honest for wasting their time, we're gonna tell them. So we'll shoot you guys a text, we'll give you guys a phone call saying, hey, the client is having second doubts. This is what we're going over on the phone call. Give them a call, okay? Give them a call, let them know. So at that point, it's not there, And it's very common. I've seen it since I've been in the office once, and it wasn't a very good conversation. So just so you guys are aware, we have your back, okay? We don't mess around, it's not there, okay? Any questions on this slide? The slide is very straightforward. You get portal access, the client does too, they can send us messages, you guys will have our cell phone number, our email. So we are open Monday through Saturday from 8 AM to 7 PM. If our client says, hey, I work all those days and during those hours, can you do a consultation on Sunday? I've gotten to the point where I've gone with agents, LOs to open houses. When it was like super crazy busy, so right, they needed more people to filter the leads and figure out, see if they can close more deals. They had no credit, or they didn't know about credit, right? A lot of people thought that, you have somewhat credit or a decent credit, you can buy a house, and it was different, right? Because a lot of people got buyers to those open houses, getting leads, following up, and it turned into business, right? So we helped them with that system, guided them, did a consultation right there and then. If you guys have a client, you guys can text us, call us, say, hey, do you have time right now? Here's a client's info, they're ready, give them a call today. One of us will give a client a call, okay? Yeah.
So if you have a collection or collections in your credit, you guys negotiate that collection?
No, we just use it to leave. So let's say, perfect example. Let's say you have a client and you open escrow, okay? Again, it's very common. Out of nowhere, right? A collection populated. It happens where it's like sprint, 8, I know what it's 8. Agency is very common too for internet phone, and now you're like in a pickle. You're like, are you serious? Your scores dropped 30, 40, 50 points. They didn't tell you, and then your deal is kind of like in the limbo, right? You're gonna lose that deal. So in cases like that, just make us aware. We'll give you guys options of what to do, how to sell it, we can do it for you. We can have it removed, we can have a letter stating that that item has been paid, that it's going to be removed off credit. We send it to the LL, so the LL will send it to the bank. So yeah, the seller, it's like a whole deal, but there's ways around it, okay?
Is that the same thing? I mean, does it depend on the situation? Like, for
Yes.
instance, if it was a medical bill
It doesn't matter,
that you weren't aware of and it like,
it doesn't matter. So a medical bill will not go on your credit unless it's reported as a collection.
that's what it is.
Yeah, which is so sad, right? Because bankruptcies, liens, garnishments, medical bills, none of those stuff was originally supposed to be reported on the credit report. Now it is, right?
What about child support?
Well, that's why I
It's not
asked.
supposed to,
Yeah,
It is?
but it is.
yeah.
So the system, the court system is paying the bureaus for them to report on your credit. That's how it works. So I want to hurt you to see that they didn't pay me back. That's the idea behind it, right? I want to hold you accountable. So anything can be negotiated when it comes down to late payments, as long as they're current now and not account, we can go back and repair them. They're not, we don't delete them, they get repaired. A collection, a charge of those items get deleted. Inquiry get deleted, okay?
So with that example that you gave with the phone company, how long could you turn that around and just say the deal?
It takes 30 days, but if you have proof to show a letter that they can mail out to the client, then you can show them the processing is paid. I don't know if the scores are not gonna help, they're not there, but literally every single process when it comes up to the bureaus, it takes 30 to 45 days. That's why we say 45 days on progress reports, because that's how long it takes. By law, bureau has 30 days to get back to the client and the furnisher from a dispute with a complete investigation. So when you call a collection, let's say, has anybody dealt with a collection agency? No shame, I have. And it was like not even mine.
It wasn't in mine.
Yeah. So you call them, you tell them, you make up a deal, right? Say, no, I'm poor, I'm broke.
Mhm.
It's $150, I want to pay you $10. They're gonna say no. But let's say you settle it for 150, you say, hey, can you delete it off the credit? They're gonna tell you no, but they can't. Okay, so the idea is to negotiate, pin them against the wall, because you wanna get removed off your credit, right? They're gonna tell you, because they're getting smart, they started using this new verbiage where they'll say, oh yeah, we'll send you a letter, you send it to the bureau, so don't get it deleted. Not true. You will get a letter saying that you satisfy that debt, and it's gonna be reported as paid for less than the full amount with a zero balance. But that letter takes 2 weeks, and then they take about 45 to 60 days to report to the bureaus. Right? So that's why you're not gonna wait on a deal that you have, your open escrow, it's 30 days, 45 days. You're not gonna wait for a letter for 60 days that you're gonna forward to report to the bureau saying, hey, did satisfy that debt to be able to move forward with escrow. That's why the letter is very important. That's why when people do it on their own, it just turns into a hot disaster. If you don't know what you're doing, you end up putting yourself in a bad position, okay?
I feel like I was here for a reason.
Right. I love it.
To learn all that.
I love it.
Don't do it by yourself.
No. Go with the experts, right? There's a lot of people, there's a lot of sellers out there that are like, I don't, or buyers, I don't need.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Yeah.
Shut up. Alright. What have you been able to help with? Has anybody dealt with the 910 buyer? No, 910 buyers? Do you guys know what a 910 buyer is? Okay, so it's becoming very common because a lot of LOs, a lot of banks are pushing programs out there for 910 buyers, right? So if you have anybody that you guys know that they're like, I don't want to buy a house, I don't have my social, you know, you have a 910. Yes, you do. Perfect, we can help you with an 910, okay? If they have no credit, we can help them establish credit. So we can get them from 0 to hero in 30 to 45 days, okay? Takes one trade line. Through the process, let's say the person has a 19 or a social, they have no credit whatsoever, we can help them with that, okay? People, victims of identity theft, that's so common nowadays, and it's a whole process. It literally technically can get legal. So we can have the sheriffs go to your house or the police department, do a fraud affidavit, have them give you a report, put that on there, and then send it to dispute with that fraud affidavit so it can be removed off your credit. People think I can just call the bureau and be like, hey, delete it, it's not me. They want proof. They won't remove it just because, you know, you call them and you give them that story. They don't care. Literally, they don't care. All right, so again, 45 to 60 days, no credit. Very easy, very straightforward. We're gonna go over another slide in a bit, and it's gonna make a lot more sense on this, and something that we can help you guys, if you guys know anybody in your family, your kids, whoever you wanna help, okay? Medical collections, again, same thing. They don't get reported on your credit until you go negative, right? There's a few collection agencies that do it. There's maybe 4 or 5 that kind of hold all of the medical collections. So the way that it works is I am Kaiser, right? And I have all of these people that owe me money. And I'm gonna sell it to KW. Say, KW, I have $5 million in collections, people that have not paid me. I'm gonna sell it to you for $2 million. Then after that, you can do whatever you want. You can collect the full amount if you want, right? So the minute that the medical collection gets sold to a collection agency, there has been, they already paid pennies on the dollar, right? And there's some discrepancy already because they lost information, right? Kaiser didn't give, you know, KW all the information that they needed for them to be able to hold that account. So when we send them disputes and there's a verification, they miss something, and for that, they have to delete. Okay, so we've had people that have come in and they're like $150,000 because they have insurance. And the sad part is that people think I have insurance, my insurance is gonna take care of it. And you receive the bill from a specialist that you went to get an x-ray that's outside of the actual facility itself. Your insurance didn't communicate with them and gave them like, hey, they're covered. So the bill went directly to your home. You're like, I have insurance, throw it away, file it away, right? You didn't pay them, they're gonna go after you, okay? That's why the medical collections come up. Or basically, if you didn't have insurance, if you're an employee for it, although that's hard. Well, that insurance is hard. It's very common. Again, it gets sent to you, you don't pay it, and that's what turns into a collection. So yes, it can be removed. If somebody advises you to pay it, it's you're wasting a lot of money for a phone, you know? You pay it, won't give it more for your credit, what's what?
And if the, when
You know, I'm like, oh yeah, when the collections agency doesn't send you any notice that you even, it was transferred over, what happens then?
It doesn't matter. They can sell that to somebody else if they can't collect from you. Is that what you need?
Well, okay,
Third
so
party.
yeah, so I'll be honest, I received, the only reason why I found out is because I had like a 60-point drop in my credit. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I seen that I had a collections for a medical bill. I had to investigate because I didn't even know what this was. And when I looked it up, it showed what it was for, but I never received any notice or any payment or anything that I had to pay anyone.
So it's paper trail, so there's no way to track it.
Yeah, there's no way
No.
to track it.
So
It
they
just,
go-
it was
they-
on your credit, it's on your credit, it says, hey, you owe this money, I'm like, you owe money to.
When you call the collection agency and they tell you this is where it came from, and you call those people and they're like, what's no longer ours?
Yeah.
We sold it to somebody else.
Yeah,
We don't have rights.
yeah,
You gotta deal with them now, right? And the hospitals are so good at telling you, you know, FO and then hang
Yeah.
up, you know, and it's so messed up. Because now they ruin your life, because that could be life changing, right?
Yeah.
You want her to buy a house, you want her to refinance your house, you want to buy a car, that's critical, right? And it's like you want to get back at them, right? So if you do pay it, you're assuming fault. So we're kind of, in no reality, you're, you know, credit, you know, lawyers, I'm gonna say. But those can be deleted, okay? All right, so secure charge, I charge of secure collections and non-secure collections. Again, every case is different. The reason why we say that is there's statute of limitations that basically prevent from us deleting if they already taken legal action on it. Okay? Very straightforward. Somebody went to your house, even if it wasn't you, mom, dad, son, they're like, hey, is George there? No. Does George live here? Yes. There you go. You give him his paperwork, he got served. Good judge. So for that matter, in that paperwork, there will be a date that you're supposed to show yourself in court. And you're like, I'm gonna show up. What am I gonna do? You know? You failed to provide any information on the show up in court, they're gonna go ahead and move forward with legal action. They'll go after any legal assets, any personal asset that you have, whether it's a bank account, garnishment, your cards nowadays, anything that holds liquid assets. So it could be your house. We've seen it where people have liens on properties that they don't know. It's like, how do you not know? It was sent to you. Your story. So keep an eye out for that. If you guys have any clients that tells you that, we can help. 100%, absolutely. We went over pay to delete strategy. This is very technical because if you took a phone call from Capital One, and they're so nice. Capital One is like amazing. They're super cool, right? You can have a charge up, have a collection with them, and they'll still give you a credit card. Right? They're like, you can have another credit card. Okay, we'll give you a 0 annual fee, but we're gonna charge you 28-30% on interest rate. Is that okay? And then you sign up, you get it, it's $300, and it's gonna be $300 for freaking 5 years. You're never gonna go up, right? Especially if you owe the money. Why would I give you more? Right? I just want to get you now so you can pay me more interest, so maybe you can sell the debt after that and collect money, right? Very sad.
that interest is like $50.
Yeah. So we'll go over into details of what we advise, and when it comes down to credit cards, a lot of people have the wrong ideas. I owe more, I pay less, I'm building more credit. You've all heard of that, right?
Yeah.
Or let's say mom and dad told you when you were 18, it's okay, we're gonna buy a car, and we're gonna put it under your name and my name, right? And what happens? The kid loses their job, they stop paying on the car, who are you affecting? Your parents too, right, because they're on there too. So now if they ever want to self-buy, kind of screw them, right? But a lot of people advise you, if you go to a dealership, they're gonna say, yeah, have your parents co-sign, bring them in, get them in, and they ruin you. So when people ask me, you co-sign for me, what do we say?
No.
Ever, right?
Hell no.
Did you guys learn that when you guys became realtors?
No.
I have a lot of people that are like, I became a realtor and I do so much more. And I'm like, good for you. And the right job. It happens so often. I've had people that we fix your credit, and other one has, co-sign for their gata. Oh, my compadre said, sign for my, Your godson, because it's the right thing to do, and you're like, sure, there you go, here's $100,000 co-sign for you, right? Awful, don't do it. Tax, bankruptcy, any judgments, garnishments, we can help with any of that stuff. Bankruptcies are, they're a special case, because they're already through the courts. So let's say you did a bankruptcy, whatever chapter it is, it's gonna stay there as long as it's gonna stay, based on the actual court records, but you can delete it off the credit. Why? We went over earlier. Why can we delete bankruptcies off of a credit report? Why can't we delete medical bills off of a credit report? Exactly, right? So now they violated your rights on the Fair Credit Act, that's why it can be deleted. Bankruptcies take a while. If you had a bankruptcy last year, it can be deleted off your credit, but it's gonna take a while. It could take up to a year. Okay? All right. My fun today, very interesting. I got 1,000,000 text messages about this. Who read the great news that came out yesterday? Right. Does anybody have any loans themselves that they're gonna benefit from this?
No, I don't.
Just paid it off.
Wait, what is, I didn't, what is?
Too late.
I
know, why not?
So if you make under 125K and you took out a federal loan, you might receive, if you qualify, again, there is fine print, right? If you qualify for a deletion of student loans up to 10 grand. If you got, what was the other one? There's another one. Those Pell Grants, right?
20,000 for a Pell Grant.
Right. What was the original idea of a Pell Grant? They were free, right? It was a government program that they were giving you money for you to continue your education, right? But if you take out a second because your money ran out, what happened? That's on you. Yeah. So that same thing, 125, you would have to qualify. I don't have the fine details, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be like, if you're in collection, you're gonna be like shut out of luck. Right? There's people that have collections on student loans that they just haven't paid and went negative, you know? And it's bad. It looks bad on the credit report. If you try to get a loan with, you know, an FHA loan, or you're having business and you want to get an SBA loan, they're gonna be like, oh, that's already, what are you talking about? You're negative. No, we're not gonna give you money. They're awful. VIP Auto Club. VIP Auto Club is very popular. Not currently for trying to buy a car because, God, they won't give you a cent off of a sticker price. The reason why we utilize this particular product itself is because we have LOs that come in and they say, hey, my buyer has 3 cars that they're buying or they're paying for. One of them is theirs and the other one's the wife, the daughter, the godson, el vecino, right? So now they have this super high interest rates, right? If you're able to take $1,000 car payment and change it into, you know, 500, let's just say, will that help them get pre-qualified for more money on your guys' experience? Yes? Because their debt to income is now smaller, right? So this is very popular. We do help set up clients for a refinance. Refinance is just like a house on a car. There has to be equity. If I just bought it yesterday and I'm trying to refinance now, your car is not big, you're upside down. You took it out of the lot, it's worth $10,000 less, right? It happens. So we can find out if it has equity, we can find how much it's gonna cost for them to refinance, we can find out what kind of interest they can get, what kind of payment, monthly payment they can get. If it's gonna benefit the client in the long run, they're like, I wanna buy a house, I have a means, I mean, $200,000 a year. A realtor, my LO told me that you guys can do it. If people will pay out of pocket to be able to reduce that monthly payment so they can be qualified for money, people will pay for that service. The other thing that we do with VIP Auto is we can basically take a client, do the negotiation on their behalf. We just go to the dealership, you don't have to wait 5 hours, you don't have to deal with the whole, you want to have gap insurance, everything else. You get there, you sign, they're washing while you're there, and then you drive off with your keys. Everything's done for you, okay? As you can tell, we used to be in the auto industry, so we know all of it now.
But then how do you know what the customer wants to pay as far as the monthly payment? Like,
We
you're negotiating for them, but
Wait.
just repaying the dealership, right?
No. So when you refinance a car, you're gonna get them a new finance company. So we have their credit report, and we see where they can go, we see how much they made. So that's a conversation between us and the client, saying, hey, where do you wanna go? So we have this finance company that has this thing, and they're offering this much for your credit. Soft pull, they haven't pulled your credit, based on what we gave them, this is how much. They can go down to as far as interest rate and what the actual payment will be, okay? Corporate credit, you guys are all 1099 employees. Corporate credit is huge. It's very promising for anybody that has their own business. So you guys can basically market your business and say, taking over the world in a suit. I don't know, LLC, whatever you guys want to call it. So this releases basically all of your personal debt. It'll lower your debt to income, and you can put all your fees, everything into the corporation, so the corporation will basically pay itself. So that way you save the taxes, you get a lot more in funds, and it's not attached to your personal credit. Okay? And they're in the actual brochure, it has a little more to go over on there. Raul is gonna go ahead and pass out his doc card, so you guys can, if you have a question, book a consultation with us, and then, again, if it's just asking questions, hey, I got questions, can we do a one-on-one? Consultations are free, okay? Trade lines, again, piggyback writing on somebody else's credit, don't mind the picture. It was not my idea. Trade lines are very popular. We do offer them in-house. We have 60 trade lines, meaning you get added as an authorized user. These trade lines don't have any negative items. They've been open for more than 2 years. And basically what you're doing, or the client is doing, is they're buying credit history. Clients say, oh, I'm gonna get the $10,000 card. No, you're not. You're just buying the credit history. So all it's doing is boosting your credit scores. That's all, okay? So let's say, who has kids here? Okay, how's their credit? Does anybody have anybody that's 15, 16 years old yet? Okay, how's their credit? Based on what you tell them. Not good, because nobody teaches you about credit.
Well, mine's good because they're attached to my credit.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're added as an authorized user, so you can help your kids basically boost their scores by adding them as an authorized user on your account. Now, what comes with that?
Make sure the bills are paid.
Exactly.
Because it's our credit.
I only do it when I lock them up.
So the best thing to do with this, if you already know you have a few credit cards that you're not using, but they have zero balance and your credit history, don't let them go dormant. Meaning the minute that they go dormant, that's when people go in and I don't know what lost points. Well, that Bank of America card that you had since you were in high school, has 10 years of credit history, and they closed it on you because you stopped using it. And then guess what? You lost 10 years of credit. And that's why your scores went down. Okay? The minute that they go dormant, during COVID, it happened. Everybody lost a credit card appeal, right? Because the banks are like, oh no, she hasn't used it. He hasn't used it in 5-6 months. We're gonna close that account because that's a liability. Nobody knew where COVID was going and what was happening, right? So it happened a lot. People that had the American Express for $10,000, $50,000 credit cards that went from 50 to 10,000, they're like, why? COVID, right? They were afraid. They're like, we know what we're gonna do. What if this person goes in and pays the car, the mortgage, the credit card? What do we do after that, right? So very important that if you are gonna add cousin, mom, son, that you're responsible, because whatever you get reported on your credit bureau on that particular trade line or credit card is gonna be reported on theirs. If you're late, it's gonna mark a late on them. That's why it's very important. We ask the clients when we have consultations, they have negative credit. The model we like to use is we like to go in and sweep before we mop, and then we do this, trade up. So we give them the option. If you have, mom, dad, wife, husband, and they can add you and they're responsible and you trust them, go ahead. If not, we have them to offer. Okay? We have a lot of people that nobody wants to know their finances. They're like, I don't care, I'll pay for it, but I don't know what to know that I don't have credit, Very common. Okay, so now this is why you should refer as business. And it's better to close a deal later than never. So again, building a pipeline. Okay, how many clients have you guys encountered that they told you they don't have credit and they get thrown away? Does anybody encounter that? I see it all the time. They're like, well, come back when you have good credit, right? They're gonna be like, no, they didn't wanna help me. I'm not gonna cut back. A lot of the times when you guys partner up with an LO, the LO can pull credit and the LO can share that credit with us if the client wants to. So that we already have a credit report. But when you know you're kept in the loop, so if you refer somebody to an LO, make sure that you keep track. Make sure that they offer you portal access like we do, right? Follow up, very important. Any questions on this? Again, we told you we're gonna CC you on every single email every 45 days. You have access to our CRM. Who here uses Line Desk? Ready? Does anybody know what Line Desk is? No? Yes. Yeah, it's a CRM. It's very popular for real estate agents. So you can send text blasts, you can send emails, you can send video emails. You gotta pay for it, but it's very cool. So you can basically schedule yourself follow-up. You can schedule, so cool, okay? I did not know this. I was added to somebody's CRM and then I get a phone call from this made-up number, right? It's 909 number and I was, maybe it's a client will answer. Hello, thank you for holding, this is George. And then there was a little pause. And then there was an agent that I had met, she added into her CRM as a buyer, and I was like, who? I was like, bro, why are you calling me? I'm not trying to buy, I already bought a house, remember? She's like, oh my God, the system automatically scheduled a call. So the system will link up a call. I don't want to sell you Line Desk, but it's really good. It's a good CRM. Definitely use it. Have a way for you to basically keep track of your own leads. Whether they're not hot, they're cold, they're warm, they're a rental, lease, they're buyers, whatever it is, somewhere for you to market. This is all of our information. If you guys go ahead and follow us on Instagram, we'll follow you back. Like I told everybody, we do not share any information that's not useful. The idea is to bring more awareness. On that link, you will also see a link tree so you can schedule an appointment. Let us know. The link is also on the paper. Raul, did you pass around your okay? Yeah. Perfect. So you guys can add as a contact. It'll have the phone number, the email, everything. Any questions? Any current clients that you guys have that have any credit challenges that we can help you guys talk about? No?